Logical positivism has got nothing to do with the sciences.
Logical positivists, they want to build a foundation.
What does Bertrand Russell say about about philosophers qua logical positivists when he contends that the philosopher has no special claim to to knowledge? What is he doing? Why does Wittgenstein, in the first fundamental or principal proposition of the Tractatus, refuse to comment upon the nature of the world? Why not indulge in a quasi-scientific theory about things,
Because
objects?
according to him, it is not the job of a philosopher to.
So yes, so meaning has a very specific, rarefied meaning for the logical possibility. Meaning does not mean personality. Meaning does not imply meaning within a specific community, which itself is contingent. What sort of meaning are they talking
Uh, which is meaningful in philosophy, for philosophy.
about? Okay, so Plato's world of perfect ideas is not meaningful in philosophy. Aristotle's conception of eudaimonia, is it or is it not meaningful in philosophy? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to strip philosophy of? What are they trying to achieve? Is this a very specific project or is it a general project?
No, it is a specific project.
So if it's a specific project, it has to have a specific objective as well.
They want to eliminate metaphysics and ethics.
Not eliminate ethics.
Not eliminate ethics, but they are not considering ethics.
They are not. They refrain from accommodating meta ethics within the framework of their inquiries. Okay, why they choose to do so is a different reason. But the first principle, René Descartes says that philosophy should always start with first principles, number one, and philosophy should always be mindful of the first principles it started with. The moment you lose track of your first principles, which sort of kick-started your philosophical journey, you are completely lost. It's like floating in space without a rope tethering you to the mothership. You will be lost in space. So what are the first principles of logical positivism? Why this project? Why carry this project? Why something called logical positivism? Why does Bertrand Russell say that philosophy or philosophers have no special claim to knowledge according to the logical positivist? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to align philosophy exclusively with the scope and the mandates of the sciences?
Yes,
They are trying to do it, right? So then what in this backdrop, what contours and what imports do the term meaning acquire?
they are trying to explain the theories of science.
Are they trying to explain the theories of science? The theories of science are self-explanatory. As long as the theory of science works, it is self-explanatory. It requires no further explanation. Are they trying to explain the theories of science or what? Are they trying to explain the general theory of relativity? Is that what the philosopher tries to do? Are they trying to explain psychoanalysis, provided they consider Freudian psychoanalysis to be a part of science? Is that what they're trying to do? What did I tell you philosophy is all about? What sort of pursuit is philosophy? What kind of discipline is philosophy? Is it just another discipline that lies, that exists in tandem with other forms of knowledge? Physics, chemistry, zoology, botany, and philosophy. Is that how it lies?
No.
Philosophy is not philosophy. Speaking about philosophy is philosophy. What are they trying to do? They are trying to reduce meaning to the scientific endeavor. Okay. Everything else that you say is meaningless. It does not mean it is untrue. It does not mean it is false. They are trying to reduce meaning to the scientific endeavor. These are the first principles of logical positivism. They are not trying to explain theories. No logical positivist explain theories. They are trying to talk about the conditions that make theories possible. Philosophy is always a meta endeavor. It does not exist side by side with other disciplines of inquiry or knowledge. Physics and philosophy, that is never possible. Philosophy will have no role to perform there. Okay? So these are the first principles of logical positivism. We are trying to align the philosophical method of inquiry, which in the West is at the time when the Vienna Circle convened was 2,500 years old, with the sudden spurt in the scientific endeavor. Okay, sciences at that point in time could answer so many questions which the predecessors of those scientists could not answer. So science at the time of the Vienna Circle had finally come to fruition. It could provide definite answers to the big questions that had always boggled the human mind. Now the question before the logical positivist was, what do you do with philosophy? The old way of doing philosophy, where you talk about the perfect world of ideas, etc., again no longer seems appropriate. Okay, philosophy should align itself with what the sciences can do and can do in such a spectacular manner. That is the first principle of logical positivism. That's why logical positivism gets off the ground. Now, what does meaning, what shape and form does the word meaning acquire against this background? What is meaning for the logical positivist? Don't get into the definition of meaning, don't get into the verification principle. Okay? If you just get too technical, look, anybody can define the verification principle. Okay? Urvashi, would you please define the verification principle? Please, yeah, do it. Consult your notes, consult
Verification principle.
yeah, it's the very backbone of logical positivism.
No, that is something which cannot be verified.
What are the two components of the verification? What makes a statement meaningful?
Either it has to be verified by its own meaning, like every bachelor's is
true by definition.
unmarried, every bachelor is
Okay.
unmarried, true by definition, or it has to be true by empirical observation.
Okay, good. So you can just change the ordering. Empirical verification comes first, and it comes first for a reason. You know, the ordering is not random. There's a reason why the empirical component of the verification principle is first, and then the true by definition component. Okay, so this is the verification principle. Now anybody can tell what the verification principle is. A non-philosophical person will tell you what the verification principle is. But a philosophical person would ask the further question, which is what makes this problem philosophical. Why do you need the verification principle? When the verification principle excludes from its ambit a whole lot of human pursuits. Why do you need the verification principle? Okay. This is a philosophical question. What is the verification principle is not a philosophical question. This is the problem most so-called scholars and students of philosophy fall into. Answering this question, what is the verification principle, it's not a problem of philosophy. The problem of philosophy is why was the verification principle instituted? That will get you thinking. That is the only role of a philosopher. Okay, so why was it instituted? Why do you need the verification principle? Now you have to think. Why do you need the verification principle? Think in terms of meaning, think in terms of the scientific method, think in terms of eliminating metaphysics, yes, but eliminating metaphysics for a very specific reason. Logical positivist is saying that even though metaphysics can be eliminated, okay, or it may be retained, the problem is that its retention has no utility or use to the scientific method. Okay. Now remember what Wittgenstein is. Logical positivism emerged out of a misreading of the early Wittgenstein, of the Tractatus. And then when the later Wittgenstein came onto the scene, logical positivism became irrelevant. Okay. A lot of its dogmatic contentions became irrelevant. Its insistence on precision, on exact language, those criteria did not go out of fashion. They are still retained by analytical. Okay. So the question is why the verification principle? I mean, just think of yourself this as a recreation of the Vienna circle. Why do you need the verification principle? What is the pressing need to bring the verification principle into account or into existence? Why do you need it? Okay, you asked the question, why was the verification principle instituted by the Vienna circle? You are not asked what is the verification principle. Why was the verification principle instituted? What will your answer be? Would you be able to answer this question? Why was the verification principle instituted? Forget what the verification principle is, anybody can answer. Why was it instituted?
To align philosophy with the scientific inquiry.
Okay, why? But why is a sudden fascination with the sciences? The sciences, it could be argued, existed right since the time of Aristotle. Aristotle, yeah, sorry.
Because most of philosophical question arise like that, not actually philosophical that time.
Okay.
And the Vienna Circle, they decided to make philosophy scientific or logical. So they.
Hegel's philosophy is logical. So what is this special claim to logic that logical positivist possesses? Hegel's conception of the Geist is perfectly logical. What is the problem? Unless you are absolutely clear about these first principles of logical positivism, moving on to Karl Popper and Quine and Hegel and Reichenbach will make no sense at all. You will have to be absolutely clear about why logical positivism came about. What is the verification principle find? Why the verification principle? That is the philosophically interesting question. Because hinged on this question is also the answer to another question, why did logical positivism fail? You remember that logical positivism leads to what is called scientism. The idea that science can solve all our problems, science can answer all our questions. But Wittgenstein very famously says that even if all the problems of the world are accounted for on this model, they will not really be accounted for. They will not really be solved. So what are they trying to do? Verification principle. Why the verification principle? Write a one sentence answer to this. Why the verification principle? Not what the verification principle is, but why the verification principle. Write it in your own words. Don't consult your notes. Try to cultivate the courage to think in your own language. So that's where your hard work and your efforts should take. Why the verification? You could write a 20-page answer to this question and it would still be inadequate. That is how philosophy moves. There is no perfect answer to it. Now, some of you might try to formulate a very technical answer, avoiding metaphysics, aligning philosophy with the methods and the goals of the sciences. Okay. Now, some of you who are smarter would think of an ethical answer. Try thinking of an ethical answer. Think of it as a challenge. Why the verification principle? But the answer has to be in the language of ethics. Can you do that? Just a one sentence answer, whatever comes to your mind, there's no right or wrong answer. Okay, time's up. Yeah, who wants to go first? Volunteers. Courage is the most important human virtue in philosophy. Courage. Because genuine courage can only be produced when you are truly self-aware. Only a self-aware person can be courageous. What is the answer? Why logic? Why the yeah, please go.
I think in one word it is just like through precise philosophy.
Make philosophy precise.
Huh?
Make it precise.
Yeah.
Say precise. Yeah, that's a good answer. To make it precise. Precision. So whilst there is logic in Hegel's system is not precise. Okay, it is not precise at all. Precision can be a virtue in philosophy, and that is what the logical positivist said. We need precision in philosophy. You don't have to beat about the bush. Let's talk about what we can really talk about. Therefore, meaning. Okay, and any other input? Precision. Urvashi said precision, which is good. Precision, yes. Any other input?
Do you want to solve the problem of language and make language clearer?
Make language clearer. What kind of language?
So mostly the language was not very systematic.
Yeah.
As it also tried to explain things that are not empirically possible. So they want to, because Wittgenstein also believed that language not used properly lead us to a lot of metaphysical things. So, use of language.
Yeah,
proper manner.
yeah, use of language. So that is in a way tied to what Urvashi said about precision. Your inquiry has to be precise. So of course, your inquiry will be conducted in language. There is no other medium to conduct your inquiries. So precise language. So now we have something even clearer. Not just precision. Precision what? Precise thoughts, precise feelings, precise language. Okay, language has to be precise. Any other input? Why the verification?
Meaning, like
Sorry?
the language precise have meaning.
Yeah, precise language meaning. So that becomes a sort of circular answer. A question at the very outset is, what is meaning for the logical positivist? The verification principle is instituted in order to wean off meaningful statements from statements which lack meaning. So that is how we start off. Right? Meaning, yes, but that's precisely the question. What is meaningful for the logical positivist? Precise language. Okay, any other input? What does this precise language do?
Clarity.
Clarity, yeah, same, it's the same thing, synonym. Precise language. Anything else? Yeah, please.
For me, it is in general. I would like verification principle is to predict the future event without any condition or probability. The outcome will be true.
Predictability. So predictability is actually one of the criticisms of the verification. How do you attain predictability? Science works through predictions. Okay. So the verification principle, it starts off in its obsession with metaphysics. What it does is it shows that these statements are metaphysical, these statements are not metaphysical. But because it is so obsessed with eliminating metaphysics and eliminating old ways of doing philosophy, that it ignores what it should actually have paid attention to. How do you account for predictability? Yeah, that is where it fails. That's where the verification principle fails, right? The verification principle presumes induction. Induction itself cannot be proven. Okay, so how do you predict? Okay, predictability, it's a criticism of the verification. Any other issue? Why do you need the verification? Verification principle. Why do you need? Think of an example from your own experience where you take a sentence, a statement, or an isolated experience, and you find that it cannot be verified.
They are trying to reduce all theoretical language to empirical.
Theoretical language. Okay. Theory is indispensable to the sciences. Even the logical positivist tries to incorporate theory because, again, the old example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Observed at points T, T1, T2, T3, Tn. Okay, how do you form a theory out of it? Theory is required. Theory is a very technical term. We use it very loosely in our day-to-day lives, but we should refrain from using it loosely because in logical positivism, theory has deeply technical connotations. Okay? You could say that they're trying to eliminate abstract reasoning. Okay, that's a better term to use, abstract reasoning. You go into abstract reasoning like Leibniz did, like Hegel did, and you construct whole worlds out of it without any reference to the actual world. If you are acquainted with Hegel, that's what Hegel does. He just goes so vigorously into this pearl of reasoning that he constructs a whole world, a whole conception of existence and the ends of human existence without actually any reference to the world outside. Reason gone mad, reason gone crazy, reason gone horrible. Okay, so abstract reasoning, yes, they try to eliminate abstract reasoning. Now, interestingly, the elimination of abstract reasoning will reflect in the criticism of logical positivism, semantic externalism. Okay, so if semantic externalism is upheld, what are you contending? That there is meaning, there is regular meaning, okay, but that regular meaning, which has a certain repeatability, which has a certain, the term people are used, predictability, is outside you. What is the problem with accepting something like this? If meaning is outside you and it is repeatable, it is predictable, what is the problem? What does it undermine? Come on. You all had lunch, I did not have lunch, and yet you are not speaking. What does it undermine? It undermines the empirical method. If you already know that there is a world out there which has meaning, then what is the use of empirical inquiry? Right? Connect the dots. Think of it like this. There is no, algorithmic way to approach philosophy. You start off with this. We did this because that was indispensable to this class. But now that you have finished this class, you should be able to connect the dots. Okay? Semantic externalism, meaning out there, even if it is constructed by society through social conventions, etc. If there is meaning out there, why would the logical positivist not accept it? Because it would undermine the empirical method. What does the logical positivist precisely say? That go and find out, use your sensory faculties, which is the foundation of the empirical method. Now, sensory faculties for the Nyaya and for the Buddhist mean eyes and ears were done. But thankfully, for the logical positivist, it could also mean a telescope. It could also mean a microscope. Okay? So, go out and investigate. So, theory, this is in continuation of your point that they're trying to eliminate theory. They're not trying to eliminate theory, they need a theory. The problem with logical positivism precisely is that how do you connect a theory to facts that have been observed or that have been garnered, accumulated through pure observation. That is why logical positivism failed. Thomas Kuhn's criticism of logical positivism, what is that? Okay. Okay. Okay, now another challenge to you is just stay with first principles right now. Don't try to, you don't have to catch the Shramjili Express to go to Delhi. It leaves at 8, you don't have to do that. If you are in a hurry to catch a train or a bus, then philosophy is going to give you escape. You have to slow down proceedings as much as possible. It won't be easy. You get high blood pressure. That's how philosophy works. Okay. First principles. Okay. Elimination of theory. No, it's not elimination of theory. Elimination of abstract reasoning. Can you understand, appreciate the distinction between abstract reasoning and theory? What is the difference among?
Abstract reasoning not have classical with the fact, not correspond with the empirical fact.
Yeah.
But for theory, there are explaining something that are possible.
Don't say fact, because again, when you assume the existence of facts, you are indulging in a lot of a priori assumptions that facts exist. The critics of logical positivism show that facts, what are the protocol sentences, they do not capture facts because there are no facts to be captured. How do you know there are facts to be captured? The moment you approach an empirical observation, you use your language. So you're already using theory. You're using very basic form of theory, but you're already using it. Okay. Just say empirical observation. Purifying your language as much as possible. It's a very painstaking process. One wrong usage of word and everything will collapse. You say theory and you do not say abstract reasoning, then the whole thing collapses. To someone who does not understand it and who is not interested in this, it makes no difference. But if you are really interested in it, if this is a personal pursuit, a passion, then you are going to pay. Precision of language, these are your only tools. Okay, yeah. So we said that facts, okay, empirical observation. Okay. Abstract reasoning can occur, can materialize independently of empirical observation. Okay, Hegel's system is an example. Leibniz's theory of monadology is an example. If you have acquainted yourselves, if not gained expertise into these philosophies. Okay, but what is a theory then? If it is not abstract reasoning.
There's a difference theory accord with the observation.
We forget about what a theory is. Why is a theory necessary? If abstract reasoning can be eliminated, then why is a theory necessary? Why do you have to posit the theory?
Two points in my mind.
Please.
First, because when logical positivism using this physical verification, they are only encountered with the description of the empirical data without any explanation behind
Good.
it. And second one,
Good. Yeah, second is?
the very notion of science is to explain.
Explain, yes, and to the word Kirtana used, predict. Explain and predict.
It comes from
A theory. That is the definition of a theory. And it's a good definition because it also lays down the uses of a theory. Okay. So it performs two roles. It gives you a definition, but it also gives you the uses of a theory, why theory is required. Okay. Okay, now you know the distinction between theory and abstract reasoning. Okay. Now what does logical positivism try to do? This is the only question we will ponder. Everything else, like Whitehead said, all of philosophy is just what is all of philosophy Andrew knows.
Of philosophies.
Yeah, please. What did A.M. Whitehead say about all the Western philosophers? It is just a footnote to
To analytical.
to Plato. Plato. Okay, so everything we do today will just be a footnote to this one fundamental question. What is the fundamental question? Why verification principle? Everything else will be a footnote. If you can't answer this basic question, why verification principle, then you can quote big names, Apple and Popper and Reichenbach and who else? Quine and Thomas Kuhn, it makes no sense. It is called names dropping. It is a sin influence. We all come from this specific cultural and religious backgrounds. We all know what sin in our respective backgrounds are. In philosophy, names dropping is a sin. Don't drop the name of what do you call it? Foucault. Yeah, it's very popular. Everybody wants to have something to do with Foucault. Michel Foucault, as if they understand Foucault perfectly. Foucault was their childhood friend. Never get into names dropping in philosophy. Start with first principles. This will stop you from losing your own soul. So what is it? Okay. Why the verification principle? Now we have a better answer to this question after this discussion. Do we or do we not? We do. Think I'll give you a clue. I'm not a cruel person. Now try to answer this question in terms of a theory. Now try to answer this question in terms of the elimination of abstract thinking. Okay. Now please formulate a better answer. Why the verification principle? Same question, just write a better answer. Use these two terms, theory, abstract thinking, and write an answer in your own precious words. Why? I am not sharing the question paper with you. Okay? But if you pay close attention, then it will help you. Okay? Have you written the answer? Okay, please read out the answers. Yes.
I wrote to examine expression of language which conflicting between abstract thinking method and theory in science to correspond with the goals of empirical data.
Okay. Okay. Nothing substantially wrong with it. Vana?
No, I didn't.
Haven't written? Samchari? Haven't written? Ganesh?
Like
Yeah.
I've written how language works.
How language?
Like why the verification principle came.
Yeah.
It is just to give meaning to the language.
Give meaning to language. Language does not possess meaning. How can there be a language?
Like the earlier social problems
Hmm.
or the philosophical problems arises due to the ambiguity in the language that the philosophy adheres.
Okay.
So logical positivists come this new idea.
But what is the problem with the older model?
Like take an example
Hmm.
of something like this water bottle.
Ah.
So it is the problem is like that. It is the idea of the water bottle is outside my mind, or it is supplied by my mind. So this was the problem.
The idea of the water bottle, is it constructed by your mind or is it independent of you?
Independent of the mind.
This is an advanced problem that arises out of logical processes. You are going, you're sort of jumping the gun. That is fine, if that is your input. So what is this problem called? What is this problem called in philosophy? There is one word sort of to encapsulate this problem. What is this problem called? Whether this is in my mind or outside?
Realism.
Realism. Okay. How is okay? Good question. I think you were lectured on this question by Professor Chandra also, right? How is logical positivism connected to realism? What is the answer? Because he has sent his inputs also from his lectures. So the question paper will be an amalgamation of our classes and Professor Chandra's lectures. What is the connection between logical positivism and realism?
The verification principle, the first
Let me reformulate my question. Let me try to make a better question out of it. Is the logical positivist a realist? It's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Why is he a realist? Or she a realist?
It's
You want to answer? Ganesh, please you answer. Why is the logical positivist a realist?
realist in a sense because it involves
First define realism. Never assume that the examiner knows everything. What if I don't know what realism is?
mind independent.
Mind
Matter
independent.
exists, mind of
Use elaborate language. Use descriptive language. Don't use phrases, incomplete sentences. That is another sin in philosophy. First sin is when you names drop. When you refer to Michel Foucault and all these Althusser and these big names that are currently very popular without actually knowing anything. That is sin number one. Sin number two is when you use short phrases. At least construct a proper sentence with a subject, with a predicate. Subject, object, and verb. Try doing that, you'll have to.
so you can say
What is realism?
matter exists independent of mind.
Matter exists independently of the cognizing mind. But that is how matter is defined. It's a circular definition. Matter is supposed to exist independently. See, the problems are with first principles. If you construct an answer on these lines that matter exists independently of the mind, you are already using circular argument. Why is this argument circular? Andrew? Matter, but yeah, please. Why is Ganesha's definition of realism circular?
Circular because it does not provide other extra information and repeatedly sticking interacting.
Yeah, because matter by definition is supposed to be independent of mind. That is how it is postulated. So if you use a term wantonly and carelessly, matter, then you use it to define realism, you are already following into antinomies. Is there a better definition of realism? You have provided the foundation. Never be offended in philosophy. What you have done is invaluable. You have given the rest of us reasons to think on why we need a better definition. That is how philosophy moves on. Okay, a better definition of realism. Remember what the original question is. Is the logical positivist a realist? It is a very big question. I mean, if you are asked, I'm not saying you will be asked. If you are asked, it will be a high ticket question, a big ticket question. Is the logical positivist a realist? How are you going to answer this question? If you don't know what realism is, I've told you the various forms of realism. They are not exhaustive, but they are important components. You don't write this down. Don't write down any question or anything that resembles a question that comes out of my mouth.
I was putting the LP in
That you
the,
can.
putting the scale of the realist.
What is realism? Basic definition. Or somebody asks, look, always compare yourself to MA students from other disciplines. I asked the Hindu studies student, what is Arjun's fundamental dilemma according to the Bhagavad Gita? They will give you a 2-page lecture. I asked you what is the definition of realism. You can't speak one sentence, then their question will be, what are you doing in MA philosophy? I asked an MA economics student, give me a lecture on fiscal deficit. Even a first semester student will, let alone the first semester student, a BA student will be able to give you a 1-page answer on what fiscal deficit is. But if you think of it, if you are philosophy student, then you can't define these basic terms. I'm not saying it's easy to define these basic terms, but at least make an effort. What is realism? It's the fundamental question of philosophy. Okay, I'm not saying it's easy to answer, but you have to construct an answer, right? What if two examiners check your papers? What is going to happen there? How are you going to answer this question? Is the logical positivist a realist? Yeah, logical positivist is a realist because he or she adheres to the verification principle. It makes no sense, even though it's an answer. The art of writing a philosophy answer. Okay, Sanchali has written good answers in the mid-7th, so very precise. I'll show you your answer sheets maybe 2 days from now. But that's how we do it. Is the logical positivist study? Is think also from the interlocutors. That's why I've always told you philosophy is a dialogue. When you write an answer, don't write for yourself. Think you are in a dialogue. When I'm talking to you, am I not conscious that how you must be interpreting what I'm saying? Don't I appear to be conscious of this necessity? Is that not why I keep asking you for your inputs, for your answers? That is also how you write a philosophy answer or a paper when you advance philosophy. What is realism? Think of your answer as a dialogue between you and the invisible examiner who is also your interlocutor. That is how you impress the examiner. Not by names dropping, not by quoting big technical terms. It doesn't work. Think that the examiner knows nothing. Think that the examiner is an intelligent person who wants to be respected. Start with realism. Is the logical positivist a realist? What is realism again? Can you answer this question? What is realism? You know what naive realism is? You know what anti-realism is? Can you use your understanding of naive realism and anti-realism to construct a simple definition of realism? What is realism? Just say anything that comes to your mind. Don't worry, you're not being evaluated now, but how are you going to write an answer? What is realism? What is realism? Just a simple answer. Amar, come on, what is realism? Yeah. Okay.
And it means we are not constructing through our mind about right.
Always start with the object. Is the object postulated by me, or does it already exist? It already exists. Okay. That is very simply realism. Yeah, it just exists. It exists without my contribution. Independently of me. Now this is a loaded term, independently of me. We complicate matters when we introduce loaded terms, but it exists. Okay. Then in the next sentence, you explain what you mean by existence. Okay. Then in the third sentence, you use an example from philosophers you know. For instance, for George Berkeley, the founder of Western subjective idealism, the object, does it exist or does it not exist? Its existence or its essence depends on its being perceived. Okay. But does George Berkeley mean that the object does not exist? Therefore, it does not mean that. See how lucid this answer is. If you write these 3 sentences, then no university can fail you answer. This is how to construct. Don't just write, what do you call it? Stories. You should be completely focused. Everybody else should be outside your mind. Throw everybody out. Start with something as simple as possible. Realism, okay, that the object exists. By existence, I mean that it exists in an extra-mental fashion. For instance, George Berkeley contains that the essence depends of an object depends on how we perceive. Give an example which might sound counterintuitive. Remember you asked this question, how is George Berkeley an empiricist and also a subjective analyst? It's a counterintuitive question. Someone was giving a lecture, I will not name names, and he said that George Berkeley's idealism, so if nothing exists, if everything exists on its being perceived, then when nobody is perceiving, where does it exist? It exists in God's mind, and then use that argument to criticize Western understanding of the Western notion of God. That is not what George Berkeley meant at all. That is not what George Berkeley meant at all. The essence of this bottle depends on its being perceived. Maybe it exists in a non-essential manner, in its own side. So that's why make George Berkeley a realist. How counterintuitive this is. Any child who has studied philosophy will tell you that George Berkeley is a subjective idealist. But when we use nuanced arguments, we can show using a counterintuitive example that George Berkeley could also be a realist. This is the art of constructing a philosophy answer. Start with something as simple as possible, with a pure definition. Okay, then elaborate how it means. In Western universities, you will be taught the art of writing an essay. You know, what we call it, what is the first sentence I know? The topic, theme sentence, topic sentence here.
Topic sentence.
Topic sentence.
Supporting sentence.
Supporting sentence. Nobody teaches this here in India or in the global south. It is an art. Writing an answer. Writing is an art. Writing is not just to convert what you speak down on the page. That is not writing. Remember this. Write with a topic sentence as simple as possible. Then a supporting sentence which could be an elaboration. Then in philosophy, give an example. Quote a philosophy. If you are smart, if you are philosophically God-gifted, then you will use a counterintuitive example. George Berkeley says this, keep the sentences short. You know? Don't write marathon like that. Short sentence, 100 meters, dash. Okay, George Berkeley. Now people will think, oh, George Berkeley, how does he figure in this debate on realism? But he figures if you can argue. Even though George Berkeley says that the essence of this bottle depends on its being perceived, nowhere does he say that it does not have an existence outside its being perceived. Maybe its existence outside its being perceived is non-essential. It is something in itself which you don't know. What?
Sankhya philosophy.
Sankhya. Yeah, Sankhya philosophy. Let's not get into it, Sankhya. Okay, this is clear. Now define realism. The bigger question is the logical positivist the realist? 10 marks question. What are you going to write? And those who haven't come for today's class, I don't know what are they going to do. Now define realism first. If you ask this question in the exam, is the logical positivist the realist? You start off with first defining realism as lucidly as possible. You will see if you are made to sit because you are so few in number, you will be made to sit with Buddhist studies, Hindu studies, other course students. Don't pay attention to how they write. They are just trying to fill in the sheets. Take your time, close your eyes, think. Okay, it will come. It will come. Okay. Write the topic sentence. This is realism according to me. Then a supporting sentence. Okay. Elaborating what you mean. Then the third sentence is an example. Then you finish the answer with a conclusion. Don't propose something new in the concluding sentence. That will give the examiner the impression that you have more to say and you can't say it. Never do that. Topic sentence, supporting sentence, example. Don't find yourself capable of giving a counterintuitive example, then refrain. Give a simple example. And then a bit of elaboration. Okay, try connecting the three components. How is this example relevant to what we have said above? And then finally, the concluding sentence, the conclusion, which should contain no new information. But I mean this and that, but that's for another time. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You're trying to have a conversation with the examiner. You're trying to convince the examiner that you know. You're trying to convince the examiner that they are interested. You're giving them a reason to be interested in checking your paper. Okay? Topic sentence, supporting sentence, example, a bit of elaboration, connecting the dots, and finally the conclusion, which should contain no new information. This is for your answer, this is for your research proposal, this is for your thesis, this is for your research papers, this is for everything. Okay, now answer me, what is realism? Anything that comes to your mind, just speak, be courageous.
Be not fascinating anything that tell about the real thing. Suppose like this is bottle. Somebody say that, oh, this is coconut bottle.
I just taught you how to construct an answer. Answer by sticking to those rules. Topic sentence. Everybody knows everything. Okay. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Unless you can prove that you know, nobody is going to believe that you know. Everybody is a great philosopher in their own right. Who knows? Who cares? You have to prove it. Topic sentence. What is the topic sentence? What is realism?
Realism is topic.
What is realism? Come on, philosophy students. Do this assignment tonight. Find an MA economics student. There are plenty, or international relations students. Ask the international relations students what is going on in the state of Hormuz. They will give you a big lecture. They will destroy your dinner. Now, if they ask you what is realism and you can't speak two proper sentences, then just think of it. You should fall into existential crisis. What am I doing here? You should hate yourself if you can't give a proper answer to these basic philosophical questions. Why are you ashamed? Just write it down. If you can't speak, I can understand. Some of you are shy. Write it down and show it to me. I will read it. Say you will be asked this question, what are you going to do? You know that nobody will be failed here, right? What is realism, right? Whatever comes to your mind. MA philosophy, next year you will be, after this you will be second year, final year MA students. And then another 2 semesters will go for just like that. In the snap of fingers, and you will know nothing. Don't compare yourself to each other. Compare yourself to students from other courses. Compare yourself to Buddhist studies students, Hindu studies students, philosophy students, international relations students. Observe and notice how they speak about their subject, and then compare them with what your knowledge is. That will give you a reality check. What is realism? Just come on, just 4 or 5 words. Writing is everything in philosophy. Verbal diarrhea means nothing. Can you write it down? In the West, in the global North, you are taught from a very young age how to write. And in India, in the third world, nobody knows how to write it. What is realism? Just give me a simple answer to this question. Come on. Real philosophy students should be able to answer this. What is realism? Urvashi, please, what is realism?
It's a philosophical view or
Okay.
concept.
So you missed out on what we were discussing here. Andrew, could you please repeat what we have discussed? How a answer is to be constructed?
So
What are the components? Yes, please.
whenever we try to provide answers or whenever we try to provide answers, first of all, we have to define it as lucid as possible. For example, we have to write topic sentence, clear, precise one, then followed by little bit longer supporting sentences, with examples, if you can provide example, that would be fine. Yeah, like that. So,
Give an example, please.
give an example. For example,
What is a topic sentence? What is a supporting sentence? What is an example? And then what is the conclusion? Anything from it doesn't have to be from philosophy.
for example, at Analytical University, one can have brilliant opportunities to explore how to learn their favorite subjects, semicolon, and to socialize and network with many people, as well as another one is to experience Canada adventure. So 1, 2, 3, and then for supporting sentence, we have to collaborate, learning what we love, and then another one is socializing and networking with people. Another one is experience Canada adventure with longer sentences, supporting sentences. Second one, third one, fourth one, with examples if you can provide to do better.
Yeah, good. Good.
Well planned, clear structure.
Yeah, no, good. That's how we construct an answer. If you don't know this now, then when are we going to learn? We have to know this now, at the outset. Is that a knowledge for you?
Yes.
Is it? We are in the presence of God. Anyway, so, yeah, what was we say? What we discussed. Yeah, so what is realism, please? What is realism? Come on, philosophy student, what are you doing? Just write it down and then read it. Or give it to me, I will read it. What are you going to write in the answer sheet? This is your exam, you have to write the answer. What is realism? The question is logical positivist a form of realism?
So can I say?
Please.
Realism asserts the existence of extramental reality. It means that the object exists independently outside the mental faculty.
Okay. Asserts the existence of extramental reality. Yeah, that is fine.
For example, the table exists independently without being perceived.
The table exists independently without its being perceived. That is realism. Okay. It is such a loaded example. If it exists independently without being perceived, then how is it a table? Am I making sense? If it exists independently of it being perceived, then how is it a table? It becomes a table precisely because it is perceived. Okay? And conceived even. Right? And so if you move outside the campus, and please don't have it. Be very careful. You can't get that. Okay, so yeah. Life surprises you with things.
Safe from Ganesh also.
You also have roles.
No. Safety from Ganesh.
Huh?
I'm just. No.
Okay, so yeah, Sanjali used the example of a table. Okay. And so if you perceive, if you don't perceive a table, how do you know it's a table? So use neutral examples. Object X, item X, small x. In philosophy, it's always small, never capital X. Item Y. Okay. Okay. Then what is your? That's the example. What is your conclusion?
That
What
the
is it?
world exists independently.
Realism holds that things can exist independently. Okay. Okay, that is a good example of realism. Okay, anybody else? Would you like to give it a try? Just you have to define realism. This is your bread and butter. This is what you do. It's like asking an MSc mathematics student to solve a very simple differential equation. If they can't do it, then what business do they have in MSc?
Realism is a philosophical view that things, events, or phenomena are real and they're uh, independent. They exist independently of our intellect.
Okay, so what is the problem with this answer? It's a good answer, but there's a slight problem. Can anyone point out the problem? What was what she said?
The term intellect.
Intellect. So if it exists,
Knowledge.
yeah, no, knowledge is also problematic. Because if you say that it exists independently of intellect, uh, what about empirical faculties? So you are saying that what you are saying effectively that it might exist independently of our intellect, but not independently of our empirical faculties. That is what you are saying, right? But is that realism? It's not realism. So you have to modify your answer. Instead of intellect, what do you say?
Mental faculty.
Mental faculties, or you can say cognition. Okay. Or better would be mental faculty / cognition. Okay. Now is it clear what realism is? You know what realism is? Now answer the larger question: is logical positivism a form of realism? You started by defining what realism is. You used a topic sentence, you used a supporting sentence, you used an example. Be very careful with the example you use. If you think you are not capable of using a counterintuitive, complicated example, then refrain. Don't use it. And then you write your conclusion. That is realism. Okay, now you move to part B of the question. The substantive part of the question, which is to connect realism with logical positivism. Is the logical positivist a realist? What is the answer to this question? It can be a 2-sentence answer, but it has to be precise. You are writing a logical positivist answer, or you are writing an answer logical positivism, and if you don't be precise, then their bodies are going to roll in their graves, turn in their graves. Even this much you could not follow. Okay, what is it? Please. Is the logical positivist a realist or not? Who wants to volunteer? I don't want to take names. You just raise your hand and speak. Philosophy is all about courage. If you feel pressured by me, then I'm not doing a good job. That is not my objective. I don't want to dominate you. My only objective is to ensure that you understand things. That is why we have again gone back to first principles. Is the logical positivist a realist? You know what realism is? Sanchari has defined it for you. You know what logical positivism is? Now try to think. Is the logical positivist a realist? Okay, yes or no answer. Is he or she a realist or not?
Yes.
Yes. Why?
But they also try to get real meaning, and
Okay, where is the topic sentence?
logical.
Take your time, but don't. Your answer should not be incorrect just because you are in a hurry. Your answer should not be incorrect just because you feel influenced by your surroundings. That is a tragedy. Your answers should be incorrect because you do not understand. A lot of people miss out on academics simply because they are too concerned about what everybody else around them is doing, thinking, or evaluating them, how they evaluate. If you can't get that out of your mind, then you will be in a lot of trouble. Be the best version of yourself and then answer. Give a wrong answer, but it should be from the best version of yourself. Don't give a wrong answer because I can read from your demeanor. I am good at reading people. I am not boasting. It's a curse. But I know that you are too conscious of people around you and you are not being the best you can be. If philosophers can't be that, then who's going to? Think about it. What was the real life problem that troubled you a lot. Okay, don't share details. It's very personal, but did something trouble you a lot in the recent past from your personal life? No. Just yes or no, don't describe it.
Yes.
Yes, so instead of that topic troubling you, let logical positivism come. You have so much energy, you just have to use it correctly. Okay? Okay, is the logical positivist the realist?
I think
This is a philosophical question. What in your mind, if not this, is a philosophical question? Now I'm asking for your help. If this is not a philosophical question, then what in your mind is a philosophical question? Philosophy is not made up of set pieces. Copy it from here and paste it there, it will never happen. It can happen, it happens in the name of philosophy. And good luck to you if you have derived benefits out of that method. But I am not capable of it. No, I am not saying I am not indulge in it, I am simply incapable. It is a handicap. Now, what is logical positivism? How is it connected to realism? Is the logical positivist a realist? Simple philosophical question, your bread and butter. It's like asking a international relations student when did America acquire independence? It's a simple question, it is nothing complicated. What is the logical positivist a realist? Yes. You know what realism is. It posits extramental reality. Simple realism. We are not talking about knife, we are not talking about anti-realism, nothing. Okay, there is some kind of reality which is independent of you. Now there are thousands of questions that can be formulated out of this. Where does meaning come from? Is meaning also independent of etc. etc. Don't get into that. Try answering this question and then get into it. Remember the what is it called? The first sentence, the topic sentence. Yeah, what is the topic sentence to you? Is logical positivism a form of realism? Just a topic sentence. Come on. A topic sentence.
Yes.
Okay, yes is not a sentence. Actually,
Yes,
it's a sentence.
logical positivism is a type of realism
Okay.
because they because they posit the experimental reality, existence of experimental reality.
Okay. Logic, yes, logical positivism is a realism, not a is a realism, comma, because it.
Does not deny
What is the first component of the verification?
uh,
Now, can you write a
whatever is
better
meaningful
topic sentence using the first part of the verification principle? Make your answers as compact as possible, as impactful as possible. What is the first part of the verification principle? How is a statement meaningful?
statement is meaningful
Just the first part.
if it can be verified through experience.
Yeah. So now they say that it can be verified through experience. Experience of what? Now, can you write the first sentence, the topic sentence? Yes, the logical positivist is a realist because the first component of the verification principle alludes to reality outside the mind. Supporting sentence, this reality outside the mind has to be verified. The very fact that they insist on verification, empirical verification, insinuates that they have a realist picture of reality, a realist conception of reality. Then the third part is a sentence which contains an example to show how. Okay. Then the conclusion. Okay, what is the third sentence? How? What is the example? Anything. I have told you that example does not have to be a straight arrow. It can also be counterintuitive. What do I mean by this? Don't try to find an example on the lines of water boils in 100 degrees centigrade. Think of something counterintuitive, the idea of God. For example, the idea of God. Take the idea of God. Okay, full stop or semicolon. The idea of God for the logical positivist is meaningless because
It cannot be verified.
it cannot be
through
verified.
experience.
Why it cannot be verified? Again, next sentence. Again, as a supporting sentence. It cannot be verified because
It cannot be experienced.
it cannot be experienced. This insistence on experience makes the logical positivist a realist. Conclusion. Perfect answer. This is the template we have to follow to write every philosophy answer across all 4 philosophy courses and in the next year also. Please write it down in your own words. It will help you till the end of your life. Write a topic sentence, practice it 10 times. Then write a supporting sentence, write one more supporting sentence. Give an example. I have told you that example does not have to be a straight arrow. It can be counterintuitive. Take the idea of God. Everybody knows God, right? You're never going to forget about God. Take the idea of God. God is the existence of God is not a meaningful sentence because God cannot be experienced. This insistence on experience makes the logical positivist a realist. Don't get into traps where you explain too much, over-explain, which forces the examiner to think whether you actually have accurate understanding and knowledge or you're just reading about the question. Then a concluding sentence. That is your answer. This is not a history paper. You just have to be very precise. You understood, Ganesh? What is the first part of an answer? What is it? Not paying attention. You will never wear a Rolex in life if you don't pay. Look at Andrew. Pays attention in all classes and wears a Rolex. What is the first part of an
I
answer?
like Daniel.
Huh?
I like sir. I don't like Rolex.
You don't like Rolex.
Like,
But at least you like a good answer. You like writing a good answer. No?
Ah,
Then what is the first part of an answer? Don't just write anything. There is a structure to it. Don't just try to be a Shakespeare or a Wordsworth in the exam. No, I will just know whatever comes to my mind is the best answer. Follow the structure. What is the first part? The topic
just
sentence.
take the
Topic sentence. What is it, Sanchari? What is the first part of the answer?
Topic sentence.
What is the second part?
Supporting.
Supporting.
sentence.
Supporting sentence can be a bunch of sentences. Okay, don't take it literally. It can be 2 sentences, 3 sentences. Depends on you. If everybody writes the same thing, then how are you different from each other? There's a concept in philosophy called alterity. What makes a self different from other self? If you write the same thing, then you're not different from each other. What is the point? I might just as well be teaching one ideal model representative student. Anyway, so what is the third part?
Example.
An example. Example can be counterintuitive. If you want to give an example about realism, you don't have to just talk about what realism is. Think of what realism is not. The idea of God. Why is God not acceptable to a realist? That is a perfect example. Now don't give this example in the exam, all of you. Use your own brain, come up with something innovative. Okay? It is a very simple, yeah. You say something.
So what was the example you gave before about Berkeley?
Which ones?
Berkeley. Berkeley.
Berkeley?
George.
Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Berkeley. So there was a lecture, I think you were a part of that lecture, I don't want to name names. So a distinguished speaker was talking about the parallels between Vijnanavad Yoga from Buddhism and the subjective idealism of George Berkeley. So their larger contention was that the Vijnanavad Yoga is not a subjective idealism on the lines of what George Berkeley proposes. Why? Because George Berkeley proposes SAS perceived. The essence of anything depends on its being perceived. And if it is not being perceived, then God perceives. Okay. And then he went on to criticize the Western understanding of God. Because he thought of this argument as a theological, what we call it, defense. Okay, but it's not a theological defense. That's why I said philosophy lives between the gaps. You place 2 bricks side by side, that is not philosophy. It might look very impressive, but philosophy is in the gap between 2 bricks. Okay. George Berkeley simply says that the essence of a thing exists, lies in its being perceived. The essence of this bottle is what? That it can carry water. Its essence, that's its essence. Its essence is what? That it has been marketed, it's a product of consumerist capitalism. Slavoj Zizek, following Karl Marx, would define it on these lines. Okay, this is its essence. Of course, its essence depends on being perceived. If someone from North St. Louis Island were to come here, this bottle would make no sense to them. It would make no sense to them. But does this bottle's existence or whatever it is made of, matter, material, does it also depend on its being perceived? No. Is Berkeley saying that? No. Can Berkeley be seen as a realist? Yes. Berkeley can be seen as a realist. It is a very subtle distinction. When you speak too fast about philosophy, you are not doing philosophy. I am very sorry to say this. These days it is a trend, everybody has very short attention spans. Nobody can sit quietly in a class and apply their minds, think. It's like making a stew. You know how stew is made? If you have ever been to, in Urdu it's called stew. If you're interested, yes, you might know Urdu. See, in Bangladesh it's quite a delicacy.
It's slow cook.
Slow cooking, slow fire. That is the curse of a thinker. Very slow, overnight, simmering. If you want to do fast food, then this is the wrong subject. Go into something more glamorous or something, where you get quick results. Okay. So George Berkeley, can he be a realist? Of course he can be a realist. But if I were to tell the scholar that George Berkeley is a realist, will they listen to me? No, they will not listen. They are lost in their own world. They have you unfortunately have no choice. You have to listen to it. You are stuck with it. But the great scholar will not listen to it. That is the philosopher's suffering. You die with your own truths. Anyway, understood? Realism, a topic sentence. Everybody has to do this. Okay, at least those of you present here, those who are not present here, they are missing out on it. And I'm not accountable for it. But at least all of you here, this is how you will write every answer. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry to fill up sheets. Just spend some time. What is the topic sentence? What is the supporting sentence number 1? What is supporting sentence number 2 if required? Number 3. Then use an example. Okay. It can be a personal example, but preferably it should reference a philosopher whom you know well. I've given you the example of George Berkeley. Okay. But don't all of you. So don't use this in the example. Think of your own example. Okay. Then the concluding sentence. Now you know how to write an answer to the question, is the logical postulate for realism? Huh? Go on. Does each one of you know how to answer this question in an exam, in the exam? Show of hands, do you know or not? You will be able to answer this question. Okay? Don't just get into writing stories about logical postulations started, and don't write history answers to philosophy. That is again another sin. Sin number 3. Start off with first. There's the question of realism. Start off by defining realism. Every sub-component of the answer should again follow the same structure. Topic sentence, supporting sentence, supporting sentence, supporting sentence, example, conclusion. Then move on to the next component. It's logical postulation form of realism. Topic sentence. Practice this at home. Okay. Learn that it won't come easily. It will take some practice. Topic sentence, supporting sentence, supporting sentence. Because writing is very you can carry it away. Okay. People who are introverted, they find a means of expression in writing, through writing. So they just get carried away and write anything. But there is a very important word. Whether in philosophical writing or non-philosophical fictional writing, it is called restraint. If you can't exercise restraint, then you will be in a lot of trouble. You want to write this, but no, think 10 times. Should I write this? Okay, stick to this format. Okay, practice this at home. You all know what it is. You should not now need to consult books to know what realism is. It is your basic bread and butter. It is what inflation is to an economics student. It is what a differential equation is to mathematics and a chemistry student. Okay? Okay. Does everybody know the answer to this question? Is logical positivism a form of realism? Okay. Okay. So what was the tethering question, the fundamental question that we have raised, to which everything else is to be a footnote? What is it? You forgot it? Yeah, please. Verification principle. Why the verification principle? Okay. Now, do you have an additional answer to this question? Why the verification principle? Because, what is the topic sentence? Because the logical positivist upholds a form of realism. What is the supporting sentence? The realism of the logical positivist is embedded in their insistence that a sentence statement can be meaningful only if it can be empirically verified. Yeah.
So logical positivism upholds what?
Don't write this down. Just try to understand what it is.
I missed it. Upholds.
Okay, upholds what did I say? Logical positivism is a realist because of his or her insistence on empirical verification. Okay, if you insist on empirical verification, does that automatically make you a realist of some kind or not?
Yeah.
Yes. What are you going to verify empirically if you do not already posit some experimental reality? Your answer should be creative. People think that philosophy answers cannot be creative. All creativity happens within fiction. Not true. When you formulate your answer in this fashion, you are being creative. You are showing creativity. Okay. You can use empirical validity or empirical confirmation to define realism and vice versa. Okay. This is not a circular answer. Because if you insist on the empirical method, you are already presupposing that there is some reality out there independent. Now, this is a much easier way to define something in philosophy rather than just giving straightforward answers. Have you all now noticed how difficult giving straightforward answers is? So, Ganesh started off with the logical realism posits that matter exists. When you bring matter into the picture, you are already using a circular term. Matter is supposed to be independent. Mind and matter is the fundamental dichotomy in all of philosophy, be it the Sankhya, Purush and Prakriti, be it in René Descartes, be it in what's his name, Plato. Okay, I'm going in the zigzag manner, but this is the fundamental dichotomy. If you try to give very straightforward answers, you fall into this trap. It is not easy. Writing anything in philosophy is not easy. The comparison between you and economic students is not fair actually. Your task is much harder. Because every time you try to define something, you fall into a trap. An economic student will not fall into a trap. Inflation has a simple answer which will be true in all possible worlds. Solve cricket. All possible worlds, inflation, the definition will be true. Realism definition will not be true. So you have to find some definition which will somehow be true in all possible worlds. In your case, the two possible words are your answer sheet and the examiner's mind. Okay? Okay, so what is the verification? Why the verification principle? Now we have another way of answering it. Okay? Because the logical positivist is a realist. Now the next question that comes is, why stand on with the verification principle? Now you have no answer to this question. Can you articulate what you already know? I know it's not easy to just come up with impromptu answers to questions, but we'll have to try it. Unfortunately, there is no other way. Nobody is judging you. If I were in one of those seats, I too would have struggled. I would have felt disinclined to answer. But now, since you have made that life choice that you have opted for a philosophy course, you will have to put yourself through that torture. If you don't do it here, you won't be able to do it in your room. Why? Why is it more likely that you can answer a question here better than you can in your room. You know why? Does anyone know the answer to this question? Why is it always better to perform in a group than alone? Why do PhD scholars struggle so much? I've given you another hint. Any idea? Because of normativity. You are expected here to be the best you can be. Everybody is watching you. Everybody is silently judging you, even if they don't say as much. In your room, you have no normativity, zero normativity. The PhD scholar has zero normativity, unless they are subjected to seminars and all of that, where that normativity comes into play. So make use of this. There's normativity. Try thinking. If you think that I can go home and think in peace, it will not happen. People perform better under pressure. That is the dictum from management studies. The reason that the performance actually occurs, that better performance actually materializes, a philosopher would say, because of normativity. You are a moral community here, whether you accept it or not. If you come up with a better answer, your stock value rises, whether others acknowledge it or not. That is how human groups function. Theory of groups. Anyway, so the verification principle. Okay, no problem. Go back to the first principles. What is the verification principle? Andrew. If you don't know what the verification principle is, don't feel bad. Okay, very recently in the Indian Supreme Court, okay, I like giving these real life anecdotes. So there was this grandstanding, you know the word grandstanding? Someone who uses big words to sound impressive, grandstanding. Politicians indulge in these kind of practices. There was this big lawyer, very big lawyer, I forgot his name. He charges 5 to 10 lakh rupees, maybe 15 lakh rupees for a 10-minute appearance. Okay, just for a 10-minute appearance. And so he came to the Supreme Court of India, and his job was to defend free speech. Again, I don't remember the context. Okay, but his argument was, okay, now listen very carefully and just tell me whether his argument is sound or unsound. He says that the case was that religious freedom. Should temples in South India be free to formulate their own rules? For instance, women are not permitted in certain temples in South India. Now, the argument from the side of the temple, you might know this, no? The argument from the temple management was that the temples are free to formulate their own rules, their economic rules. Okay. And now the Supreme Court lawyers' counter argument was that religious dictum cannot influence the law. We live in the scientific age, and the criteria of living in the scientific age is the falsifiability criteria. The falsifiability criteria states, this is a very renowned Supreme Court word, falsifiability criteria states that a statement is true if and only if it can be empirically verified. Did he make a mistake or not? What mistake did he make? You? Amar, yes. He said the falsifiability criteria given by Karl Popper is that the statement is true if and only if it can be empirically verified. Is this the falsifiability criteria?
No.
Huh? It's not. Imagine someone speaks on these lines in the Supreme Court of India. Okay, you can go home and search. I'm sure all of you are on Instagram or on these apps, or you can search on YouTube. Okay, Supreme Court lawyer falsifiability criteria. Is this the falsifiability criteria? Can you imagine? It went unnoticed. It went unnoticed. No comments underneath that video pointed out to this fallacy. No Supreme Court judge pointed out to this fallacy. The opposing lawyer did not point out. But you would be able to. Okay, the real world use of philosophy. Okay, yeah. So yeah, what is the why is there question? Why is there or in the verification and not an and? Come on, you know the answer to this.
So the verification principle is not trying to eliminate theory; it's the elimination of abstract reasoning or thinking.
Abstract, yeah, that is the answer to a previous question. But why is that or? What is the verification principle? There is an or, right? There is a verification principle, not an and. What is the verification principle? Amar?
That observation is meaningful if we can verify a ordinary data
Yeah.
or it's true by definition.
And
Or
why or? Is it just is it a trivial matter that they use an or and not an and, or is it philosophically significant? Which ancestors, philosophical ancestors within the genealogy of logical positivism will you have to refer to answer this question?
Can't.
Can't. Yes. Why
Because
not?
they do not accept the synthetic a
Okay,
priori.
be very careful with the use of pronouns. Okay,
The logical
they,
positivists.
use nouns, proper nouns.
The logical positivists reject the synthetic a priori category of Kant.
Okay. Okay. Who proposes the synthetic a priori category? This is your what is it under the first sentence? The topics sentence or the thesis sentence. What is your supporting sentence? Think of it. Now you have to articulate all your answers verbally in the manner in which you would write them. You have articulated the topic sentence, the thesis sentence very well. What is your supporting sentence? Yeah, speak. You're doing well. Speak.
Synthetic a priori is a category proposed by Immanuel Kant.
What will you have to do? You have to define the synthetic a priori, right? Why do you assume that the examiner knows it? Okay. You might assume that the examiner knows it, but it would not be respectful towards the examiner if you don't define it yourself. If the examiner wants to know whether you know it. What is the synthetic a priori? Yes.
Synthetic a priori is a category of Kant which says that some knowledge can be synthetic, that is, can be experienced,
Yeah.
and also they can be a priori, which is already present.
True by
Without-
definition.
True by
Okay,
definition.
that is your perfectly construed first supporting sentence. What is your next supporting sentence? Synthetic a priori, right?
Logical
Yes.
logical
Stay
positivist.
with Kant because
Okay.
you'll have to stay with Kant because you are not done explicating Kant. You still have to talk a lot about Kant. Okay. Since why did Kant propose synthetic a priori? Just one sentence. What was the problem Kant faced? Now you have to go to Hume. What was the problem that Hume came up with? The roadblocks of empiricism. Remember? Induction, problem of induction, causation. The Copernican revolution in philosophy. Why did Kant have to come up with such a monumental revolution? Equivalent to that of Copernicus, personage no less than Copernicus. Why did Kant have to do this? What problems did Hume show philosophy would run into based on a pure radical empiricism? That is the next supporting sentence. What does Hume say? Is induction possible? Can we know about induction empirically? Keep it as simple. Can we know? Can we experience induction? Can we experience regularities? No, we just experience discrete events, right? Ideas and impressions. So how do we know, not experience, but know regularities? They're just conjunctions carried out in a mind, and we confuse them for causation, confuse them for induction. Okay, but induction is never experienced. Okay, further induction presupposes itself. This is the problem that Kant solves by proposing the synthetic a priori. Okay, two perfectly well construed synthetic supporting sentences. Now the example. What is your example?
The example of synthetic a priori
Yeah, but start with the problem that synthetic a priori tries to solve. The sun rising, causation.
Synthetic a priori or tries to solve the problem of causation proposed by Hume, that
Yeah.
causation is misunderstood as one thing cause, like the cause. One thing is
The cause, one event is the cause.
one
another
event is the cause
effect.
of
Yeah.
another event.
Yeah.
One event
But
produces
this
another
relation
event.
is never experientially.
But this relation cannot be
Perceived.
experienced
Yeah.
or perceived, cannot be perceived through experience. So it is just because of repetition of those
Yeah,
events, constant conjunction of those
Yeah.
events.
Okay, this is your third supporting sentence.
It is
And then
seen
can't
as
solve this problem by.
synthetic a priori. He says that some categories of knowledge or some categories of knowledge uh, they are a priori, which is true by
What is a priori? True by definition
no,
and also
true by
transcendental.
definition.
They are not known through experience, but they are the transcendental condition for the very possibility of experience.
Yes.
Transcendental condition. That is why it's a transcendental subjectivism, right? It's not a subjective idealism, and it's not a getting tired, Lala?
No, sir.
Okay. So that's why it's a transcendental idealism. Yeah. Not a objective idealism or a subjective idealism. It's a transcendental idealism. Okay, there is an idealistic component to it. You supply the categories which synthesize your experience of the thing in itself, the noumena, and it converts it into knowledge, which is palatable, which is consumable. Okay, which is not discrete, which has repeatability, which has predictability. Okay, but you supply your own categories, a priori, starting with. Again, these a priori categories themselves have an a priori condition of possibility. What is it? The 12 categories themselves have an a priori condition of possibility, without which these 12 categories would not be possible. Space and time. Anything that you know is already organized spatially and temporally. If it were not to be organized spatially and temporally, then all these other categories, causation, etc., 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 whatever they are, would simply not be possible. Okay, so that is your now an example. You are given an example. No, you have to give an example. Example you can give is the categories from mathematics. Okay, 7 plus 5 is 12. That is his famous example. Okay, and then this is your definition of synthetic a priori of thought. Now we move on to the next part of this of your answer, which is to show why the logical positivist rejects the synthetic a priori. Why do they reject the synthetic a priori? Look, even if perchance you were to memorize everything that constitutes or comprises logical positivism, the syllabus of logical positivism, you still would not be able to recall it at will and write an answer. Because you just simply forget, even if you remembered why the logical positivist rejects the synthetic a priori, right? There's no guarantee that you will be able to recall it at the exam. The better way is to simply understand it. How much are you going to memorize? It is impossible to memorize everything. It is a vast syllabus, starting with what's his name, Locke, and ending with all these things. Ending with actually comparisons of logical positivism with Buddhist Nyaya, Buddhist and Nyaya logicians. How much of it are you going to memorize? The easier alternative and the more fruitful and the more ethical alternative is when you simply understand. Okay, so why does the logical positivist reject the synthetic a priori? Umar, please.
What's the category of synthetic
Yeah, use the framework which Andrew has taught us to construct an answer. Topic sentence, thesis. It won't be easy, but you'll have to do this. What is the topic? If you have an answer, first formulate a topic sentence. Topic sentence. If you can't, just speak extempore, write it down. Write it down. Do it, all of you. Write it in all caps. Topic sentence. Underneath it, write your topic sentence. Train your mind to follow your command. It is something new. The mind will not accept it easily. Topic sentence, then write the topic sentence underneath. Hope you remember what the question is. You can write that down. Don't write any question. Question you will have to remember. Why does the logical positivist reject the synthetic A prime? This is part of the larger question. Why is there or in the verification principle? Sharpen your memory. You need a sharp memory. Why is logical? Why is synthetic A prime rejected? Topic sentence. Then write down the topic sentence. Supporting sentence number 1. Then write down the supporting sentence. Supporting sentence number 2. Write down the supporting sentence. Then an example. Then the conclusion. It should be precise. You have to be snipers. You can't just take an AK-47 and just No, you don't have that many bullets. In the army, they say one bullet, one kill. That's how you do it in philosophy also. Every word should count. Every sentence, every phrase should count. Don't waste your words. Whatever you do, don't write down the question. Okay? Please don't write down any question. Anywhere. Because if you do, and one of you here will inform on you that you have done this, then you will find a very different question. Okay? So honesty is a give and take. Okay, it is acceptable. Honesty is a give and take. Don't write down any question, only the answer. Why is there or? The first part, Sanchari has answered it. The second part is why the logical positivist rejects the synthetic wisdom. That's the second part. Okay, does anyone have the answer? What is the topic sentence? Topic sentence is okay, let's make haste because we have a lot of time. What is the topic sentence? Anybody? Just the topic sentence. Simple topic sentence. The logical positivist rejects the synthetic A priori because simple. What? Because what? Yeah, sorry.
Logical positivist came up with the idea of verification principle. It states that any sentences to be meaningful must be either empirically verifiable or true by definition.
You have just repeated the question. What is the topic sentence?
Rejects Why rejects?
Rejects the
synthetic
like the
A priori.
logical positivist rejects the synthetic a priori because
A priori knowledge of the supposed result which cannot be verified empirically. Example, plus 2 is equal to 4, a mathematical which is a priori which can be verified empirically.
yeah, that's the perfect answer.
So,
That is the perfect answer. Okay. So what you have used as an example, you can use it in the third component. Okay, but first component of the answer is that the a priori knowledge cannot be, or a priori knowledge, a priori categories cannot be verified empirically. It is a tautology. It is a repetition. Okay, so what Kant says that there can be a synthetic form of knowledge which is also a priori. He is simply indulging in a tautology. It is a repetition. It is not required. Okay. All mathematics, all logic is already a priori true. According to the logical positivists, this distinction between the synthetic analytic distinction will be criticized. By whom? Who criticizes the synthetic analytic distinction? Quine criticizes it. But according to the logical positivist, no knowledge can be both a priori and synthetic. Okay. Then the example. Okay. That mathematical formula do not need verification. They do not need to be instantiated empirically. They are already true. They are true by definition. Okay. They do not have to be supported with real world instances. Okay. Now, why does the logical positivist make this claim? What problem would it pose if the synthetic a priori were accepted? That is the next philosophical question. It is not necessarily a part of your answer. If you can incorporate it within your answer, then well and good. But it's not compulsory. Why? But why though they reject the synthetic a priori? Remember that when they reject the synthetic a priori, they are themselves criticized it. Okay. But what is their motivation to reject the synthetic a priori? We discussed this at the beginning of the class. Yeah, metaphysical nuance, and it also does violence to the empirical method. If empirical knowledge can also be synthetic a priori, then you don't have to privilege the empirical method as the bedrock of the sciences. You already have it as empirically true, as true by definition, sorry, a priori true. So you don't have to do that. Remember what the logical positivist is trying to do. He or she is trying to preserve and protect a method for the sciences. Okay, empirical method is paramount. Empirical method comes first. Okay, but empirical method itself cannot do all the job. Why? As Hume has shown, you need some form of reasoning too. You need some a priori categories too. Hume does not show this. Hume's problem forces Kant to show this. Okay, understood? Okay, this question why is there or in the verification principle and not in hand? Can you answer this? In the exam or if you ask anywhere? UPSC question. Why is there or in the verification principle? Okay, fine? Okay. Now the fundamental question was, why is the verification principle? What was the fundamental question? Why is the verification principle? Yeah, why is the verification? Why the verification principle? Why do the logical positivists propose the verification principle? Now you have another way of answering by asking two more questions. Okay. Now, if you are asked who proposes the falsification or falsifiability criteria and why? Can you answer this question? You know what the falsification principle or falsification falsifiability criteria rejects. You know that, right? But why? Why propose the falsifiability? Do you have an answer? What Mr. Owens?
Because the problem comes from to justify the theory, which when we using positive justification, it would be never exhausted. Because, like for example, when we claim there is a lot of SWOT and black, so when we using verification, which
So the further topic sentence, supporting sentence, and then the see the mind will not training the mind is the most important challenge for you. If you train it to first come up with a topic sentence, then a supporting sentence, then another supporting sentence is needed, and then an example, and then the conclusion. You're only going to write the way you think. You won't make a substantial improvement in writing your answers over the way you think. So you train yourself here. When your mind just goes berserk, you ask it to stop. No. Think the way you are writing. That's very important to people who speak eloquently, people who are, good speakers. I'm not just talking about politics, but even in academics. They speak the way they would write. And then eventually they end up writing the way they speak. All of you know the answers. You all know the answers. That is not the problem. Nobody cares. They will only start caring when you can articulate it in the best possible manner. So, why the falsification criteria replaces the verification principle? So, what is the topic sentence? The falsification criteria replaces the verification principle because what? Because the verification principle is perfect.
Problem.
That is your answer. Yes. What then? Complete the sentence.
Falsification, is concept.
Formulate a sentence. Just don't give me your. Once I was scolded by a professor. Don't give me your rough notes. I know you are all geniuses. You are all Einsteins in the making, but don't give me your rough notes. Give me a properly formed
The
sentence.
problem with the verification principle, as raised by the falsification principle, is that the falsification principle state that unless every
What is
instance
your
of
first sentence? What is the topic sentence?
why
You know the difference between form and content? What does Aristotle say about form and content? You have all studied Greek philosophy. What is more important, form or content? You take a lump of gold. Okay, is the lump of gold in itself valuable, or what you make out of it is more valuable? What you make out of it, the form is more valuable. So your sentence is the form of your thoughts. Don't just try to, I've run into a lot of people who think that I will just blabber something and the audience will make what they have to make out of it. Don't try to be very precise. You're also learning how to speak, you're also learning how to write. These three things go hand in hand, they go together. Your thinking, the way you articulate it, and the way you use what you have articulated to indulge in a meaningful dialogue with the interlocutor. These three skills go hand in hand. Don't just think that I am a genius, misunderstood philosopher, and I will take care of it. So people know. Okay. Now start again. What is the topic sentence? The falsification criteria replaces the verification principle because now take over. Why does it replace? Speak very slowly. Speak very slowly. You will get it. Eventually you will get there. This is how you speak in philosophy. Nobody is concerned with your private language, as Wittgenstein says. Nobody cares anything about your private language. You have to make it public. You have to be as articulate as you can. Either in speech or by jotting it down on a piece of paper. Again, try again. What is the topic sentence? Don't give us your rough notes. Now it is high time that you start, paying attention to form as well. Form, content without form is nothing. Nobody knows whether you have a grasp of content if you can't put it in its proper form. A lot of people fall into this mistake. I have the content, form I could not master, but it's there within me. I sum up. No, proof of the pudding is in the eating. Either you speak eloquently or you don't know. Yeah, nobody is going to give you, the benefit of it. Nobody has that much time in this world. So again, go ahead, right? What is the topic sentence? Put it in your best language. The start with the first word. The falsification criteria replaces the verification principle because now take over. Because the context that you are trying to provide is your supporting sentence. If you put the cart before the horse, then you're going to cause a huge traffic jam inside your own head. So what is this topic sentence? See, this is how difficult it is to write a simple English paragraph. We are simply not trained in this art. But as Andrew would know, Andrew is rich. He attended all good schools. He knows that this is, sine qua non. This is indispensable to becoming literate. Forget about reading philosophy. What is the topic sentence? Write it down. Come on, write it. Don't give up. Don't give up. You will not be taught this again unless you go to, even if you go to Oxford after this, they are not going to teach you this. Okay? In the PhD coursework. They will assume that you already know this. Even if you go to Harvard, they are not going to teach you all this from scratch. They will just assume that you already know this. Write down your topic sentence to this question. Don't just prepare for this forthcoming exam. Prepare for your lives ahead. Exams will come and go. The topic sentences, it should be as simple and as clear as possible. Falsification criteria replaces the verification principle because remember, when you write the topic sentence, you are setting yourself up or you are setting your answer up for the supporting sentences that will follow. So you don't have to explain everything in the topic sentence. Have you written it? Has anyone written it? Yeah, could you please read it out? If anyone has written anything, whatever you have. It's just a 8 or 9 word sentence. You don't have to write a whole paragraph. Yeah. What is it? Come on. Read it out.
Because verification principle is not appropriate with the justification of theory in scientific framework, it deals with accumulation of data which never exhaustively the justification of theory.
Okay, these are your supporting sentences. The verification falsifiability criteria replaces the verification principle because the latter does not perform the role it envisaged to perform. Then you explain why it does not perform the role. There are a number of reasons why the verification principle fails. Okay, what are some of those reasons? Do you remember? Accounting for universals. The verification principle holds that a sentence is meaningful if and only if it can be empirically verified or true by definition. But take the example, take any example, all swans are white. On the verification principle, we would never know about the existence of non-white swans. That is number one. Number one supporting sentence. Number one supporting sentence. Number two. What is another criticism of verification? What else does it fail to do? The verification principle presupposes the law of induction, but the law of induction itself cannot be verified. It cannot be known through empirical means. and it is not true by definition. Is it true by definition? It is not true by definition. Okay, this is number 2, supporting sentence. Number 3, supporting sentence. The verification principle lacks the predictive powers that science requires. Therefore, it runs into problems with the formation of a theory. Supporting sentence number 3. Now we have the perfect 2 components are perfectly addressed. Now the third component is an example. We have already used an example, but we can use more examples. Okay, then the conclusion. Got it? This is how we construct it. Understood? Okay? Okay. Okay, so Wittgenstein. You remember Wittgenstein? No? How is the Tractatus? How does, don't write down the question. No questions are to be written down, please. When you enter a courtroom, when it's in session, there is something you cannot do. Do you know what it is? Indian courtrooms, not American perhaps. Now this rule applied until some time back. You cannot take pictures of a trial. You can't take pictures of an ongoing trial. Therefore, what do? You sketch down the proceedings. Have you seen or heard of court sketchings? There's a reason why court proceedings are sketched down. Similarly, you don't note down any question, you just write down the answers. Okay? Okay, so how does the early Wittgenstein and the later Wittgenstein influence, how do the early Wittgenstein and the later Wittgenstein influence logical positivism? Do we have an answer? You want a break? Want a break? Take a 5-minute break.
डिलीवरी बोला पार्सल। मैं बोली ठीक है OTP भेज दीजिए, बोले नहीं OTP नहीं लगेगा। तो बोली ठीक है गार्ड के पास रख दीजिए।